Okay, the next item we're going to be talking about is hypoxia and oxygen rules when flying at high altitudes. So, what altitude are we flying in right now?
1100.
1100, what's that called?
11,000.
11,000 feet, okay. Now, for the crew, doesn't matter. Co-pilot, pilot in command, second in command, crew, flight crew. What is the maximum altitude, pressure altitude you can be at before you have to use supplemental oxygen?
17.
Nope.
Controller task convective segment 12 Echo until 0755 Zulu for South Carolina and the Florida, South Carolina, Georgia coastal waters available on high-risk flight lunch flight service frequencies.
By the way, all this convective segment is here. See those yellows?
416 Washington Center, Quebec, Niagara.
Those are convective segments.
What's a convective segment?
Convective segment is any adverse weather that's dangerous for aircraft, to all the aircraft. Light aircraft, big aircraft, jets, it's convective segment. It's those little circles. And if you go into the circle, it will tell you what it is. This is a convective segment 12 Echo. This one is convective segment 13 Echo. They issue convective segment 11 Echo. This is bad weather. We came from there, so now we're clear all the way to New York. But these convective segments are basically adverse weather, dangerous weather to all aircraft. It can have thunderstorm, lightning, hail, severe turbulence, icing, moderate, severe, extreme icing. You want to avoid it. Okay? Now, you picking up some weather or what?
We are at 7
degrees Celsius?
Celsius.
But is there any visible moisture? Or we're in the clear?
Actually, it's 40, almost 45.
Is there any visible moisture or we're in the clear?
No, we're in the clear.
We're in the clear. Okay, so it's not a problem.
45 is above, 42 is above freezing. 32 is freezing. Huh?
32 is freezing, 45 is above you. But it's not the freezing temperature itself that's going to create icing. What's going to create icing is anytime the temperature is below 10 degrees Celsius, even at 8 or 7 degrees Celsius, you can pick up some ice.
Really?
Because of the wind chill, because you're going faster through the air, it's actually colder. You can pick up some ice at
anywhere
higher.
Below 10.
Exactly, anything below 10 degrees
45.
Celsius. Yeah, just about. Anything below 45, you can still pick up icing. If it's really, really cold, usually you don't get icing because it's so cold, everything's already frozen, so it doesn't really. It's got to be like a certain temperature. And so
if it's
certain
really
condition.
cold, you don't get icing.
Yeah, if it's like minus 40 degrees, minus 40, way up, like flight level, way up there, like where the jets are, there's no icing because everything is ice crystals. It's already frozen. Whatever the moisture is up there is already frozen. It just hits the airplane and just flies off. Back to hypoxia and oxygen use. Let's finish this subject and then we can take a break. So we're at 11,000 feet and we're the flight crew. Do we need oxygen, supplemental oxygen?
11,000 feet?
Correct. No. Very good. So, if you're at 15,000 feet, do you need oxygen?
Yes.
Yeah. What about 13,000 feet? Yes?
Yes.
It's kind of correct, but not necessarily. If you're going to spend less than 30 minutes at 13,000 feet, let's assume right now, we're going up to 13,000 feet for 20 minutes to climb above a few clouds. And then we're coming right back to 11.
You don't need.
We're legal. We don't need it. Anything over 30 minutes at that altitude, you need supplemental oxygen.
You have it?
No, we don't have it on board here. But you need it.
I'm gonna fix my mic a second, okay? I see
Yeah.
I have this ring.
Oh, yeah, no problem, go ahead.
Alright, how about now?
Loud and clear.
Alright, good.
Much better. So, let's summarize. Up to 12,500 feet, flight crew does not need oxygen. Above 12,500 feet up to 14,000. Anything over 30 minutes, we need oxygen. Above 14,000 feet, we need oxygen immediately. Above 15,000 feet, everybody needs oxygen. The pilots and the passengers. Now, let's talk about hypoxia.
I was just writing.
How do you know? Yeah, go ahead, write it down. This is good notes. It's also in your practical test standards for private pilot. You will ask you that questions about oxygen use.
Up to 14,000.
Up to 12,500.
You don't need.
Do not need oxygen. Now, that's not necessarily the pilot's perspective, because the pilot may not be as good as other pilots. So right now we're flying at 11,000 feet. I'm okay. I've had pilots that we had to go down to 9 or 7 because they felt a little nauseous and, headache and, a little confused and all that, and they're like getting hypoxic. So we go down in altitude. It's very easy to fix it. You can just start the descent. Go down to 9,000 or go down to 7,000, whatever it is.
If you go from 12,500 to 14,000, less than 30 minutes.
From 12,500 to 14,000, less than 30 minutes, you don't need oxygen. Above 14,000, the pilots need oxygen right away.
Pilots and crew.
Yep, flight crew.
When do you must have oxygen for passengers?
Anything over 15,000 feet, everybody needs oxygen.
1 second, 14,000 and higher, pilots and crew must have oxygen.
Yeah, pilot crew, yeah. Flight crew, yeah, you and I, flight crew, yeah.
But not necessarily the passengers.
Passengers do not need oxygen at 14,000, no.
15,000.
15,000, everybody needs oxygen.
Next.
Alright. Hypoxia and oxygen use. Alright, very good. Now, let's talk about hyperventilation. What do you think is hyperventilation? And what's the difference between hyperventilation and hypoxia?
Hypoxia, you can't breathe.
Oh, not necessarily you can't breathe. As you're climbing up... What?
You choke, no?
Not necessarily. It's you're not choking. No, you're not choking. You don't feel choking. It just puts you...
It's asphyxiated, no?
It's just put you... It's reducing the amount of oxygen going into your brain. As you're climbing up to altitude, okay, there's less air. We know that, right? Because as we're climbing up, there's less air pressure. The altimeter is sensing the air pressure, reduced air pressure, and shows you higher altitude. So just because there's less air, there's less oxygen. Less oxygen means less oxygen going into your brain. When there's less oxygen going into your brain, now you're starting to lose it. You start thinking that your well-being, you feel like everything's good, everything's doing fine, I'm doing okay, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually, just put you to sleep.
Really?
Yeah, it's not like you're choking. No.
That
TBM that departed Rochester, New York, and route to Florida or somewhere in the Caribbean, I don't know where he was going. He was going south. He had some pressurization problem. The airplane did not pressurize. So he was climbing 25,000 feet, and the airplane was not pressurized. So he felt like everything's good. He kept the autopilot on, 500 feet per minute climb. The autopilot was climbing, and the autopilot leveled off at 25,000 feet on whatever he had on the FMS, which is the flight plan. So the airplane climbed, blah, 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 25,000 feet. And, you know, they felt, oh, everything's good. You had a passenger or your wife or something, and everything's doing good, blah, blah, blah. And then they just fell asleep, 25,000 feet, never woke up. Airplane ran out of gas, and when the airplane runs out of gas, it ain't gonna fly anymore. And then they started coming down and crashed into the Caribbean over there somewhere by Jamaica.
They crashed, died.
Yep. So, you want to watch out for hypoxia.
How do you do that?
If you have two pilots, it's easy because I can talk to you and tell you what's going on with me. I mean, it's not, humans are never the same. It's not like both of us exactly at the same time we're going to start. I'm going to see at you. Now you're making sense. When you ask you questions, you write it down. Let me write it down. I want to take a note. Let me write it down. But if we're like at 16,000 feet now, I want to tell you, what's this? You're going to say this is 1. Okay, fine. I'm going to say, how much is 1 plus 1? You're going to tell me 7. Your brain is all messed up because you don't have enough oxygen to realize what the hell's going on with you. That's why you have to watch out for hypoxia. Okay? I don't fly over 11,000 for too long of a time. If I want to get up to 13, I'll go up to 13 for about 30 minutes, then come right back down. Sometimes I have an hour flight, an hour and a half flight, and the wind is really good. So I get up there to get as much push as I can and then come back down. But I don't climb up to 13,000 feet for too long. Now, if you want to avoid the hypoxia problem, it's recommended to have a little bit of an oxygen, a portable oxygen bottle, okay? So when you become hypoxic and start losing it, all you have to do is pull the oxygen and go, just like in the medical business or in a medical office or when you go to the doctor, you immediately feel better because you're getting more air. More oxygen, more air, more oxygen. Hyperventilation is similar symptoms to hypoxia. Hyperventilation is breathing too fast. When you're breathing too fast,